Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running talk show on computers and technology. And thank you for joining us as we get things started here on a more subdued and relaxed Friday. At least for now, until we bring on our guest, who is, of course, Nathan Evans from Popzara and Popzara Magazine. You can check them out, popzara.com. And yeah, we have a lot of different stories, news, pop culture, current events, things like that we're going to get into. Always love hearing Nathan take on these topics, and he brings up some that, let's face it, over the past week, we haven't had a lot of time for computer and technology news. We've had a lot of guests that have gone the full hour, blah, blah, blah. And this will be a good catch-up day. So everyone, sit back and relax as we get things started here. But a few things I should mention, including computeramerica.com. That is where you will find the show notes, any links. It will have links to any articles, videos, stories, websites, of course, a link to our guest website. Everything and anything we talk about on today's show will, of course, be in the show notes. Also, while you're at Computer America, be sure to check out the social media contest, which, by the way, we have a winner. We have already contacted them, and they have already said, thank you, thank you, thank you. We will be announcing their name live here on the air, probably midway through the show. And yeah, one lucky listener is going to win a prize from Logitech. And the last thing is, of course, the live video feed, where you can watch Computer America and not just listen. So check all that out and more over at computeramerica.com. And why don't we get started here on this wonderful Friday as we bring on to the show, once again, longtime Computer America correspondent, Nathan Evans from Popzara. And Nathan, thank you so much.
Ben, welcome back. Can you hear me? Am I coming in loud and clear?
You sound great. Now? You sound great.
Now we had some technical issues. No, thank you, Ben. Welcome to be back. Thank you, everybody, for not tarring and feathering me. Love it.
Yeah, no, happy to have you back. And yeah, we have a number of different things to talk about. But before we do, why don't we kind of talk about your credentials for any newcomers out there? Recently we've had a lot of new people listen to the show, which is great. But Popzara, what is it that you kind of focus on?
What do we not focus on? No, basically a little pop culture bizarra. That is Popzara. See what I did?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like Nate the Rapper, kind of like Chance, but I don't take any chances. No, a little bit of this, a lot of games, a lot of movies, a lot of tech, some opinion. Try to keep the politics and the snark to a minimum. See, I think that rhymed too. And been on the Computer America show for 3 years. You haven't driven me out yet, so must be doing something not quite wrong.
And remember, that is not a challenge. That is a mark of honor. So glad to have you here. And yeah, so I often check out Popzara whenever there's a new movie, a new game. I love hearing what you and your team and staff there have to say about it. So why don't we get into some of the topics that we have for today? Because we have a few.
I did want to interject. I forgot to tell you something. It's a small PSA.
Sure.
I should have said this because we talked about this on the show. The public beta for the Mac OS High Sierra is now available. I did not know this until this morning because I've been behind the curve. I know we've talked with Craig and yourself and others in the past. We love betas. We love Windows 10 betas. We love Mac OS betas. We love them. So if you are a Mac person, I know a lot of your listeners are, surprising number of listeners, including your founder. And if you want a chance screwing up your computer with unfinished software, like me, which I'm doing right now while we're talking, then you can go to just check out High Sierra Beta for Mac OS. and see what's happening. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
I
back up
mean,
your machine. Back up your
yeah.
machine.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm, kind of poking around, looking through the features, and obviously there's there's a lot of optimization, things like that, and it looks like they have some things for VR and improved GPU performance. They have little things like that, but then they also have, and of course this is not everything, but they also have a lot of updates to Safari, which only makes sense because Nathan, I'm sure if you've been focusing on what Google's been doing with Chrome,
Oh yes.
the browser wars are hot and heavy again with
Yes.
ad blocking, autoplay, video blocking, that kind of thing. I mean, browsers are trying to compete by trying to make the most out of the box user friendly experience possible. So it looks like Safari's trying to play catch up.
Well, the thing about Safari, the thing about it, I like Safari the same way I like Edge on Windows, that they're fine, they're alternative browsers, but generally speaking, and this is probably going to make somebody mad, the two browsers that I go to the most, of course, are Firefox and Chrome. I use both, and I use both for different reasons. And but I understand the popularity of Chrome. I have ideological differences with Chrome, and not just because of Google. Google, although they've done their best to sort of bifurcate the internet. There's Chrome and there's not Chrome,
Right.
because they have this enormous leverage. In fact, they have an entire operating system called Chrome OS. So what happens is they have proprietary software that can only be displayed on the Chrome browser. Nothing new. Microsoft does it. Microsoft continues to do that. That's why, I don't know if you know this, Ben, but on your Windows machine, even though you have Edge, you still have Internet Explorer. It's hidden in there. They don't want you using it, but it's there.
Yeah.
And the reason they have that is because of the browser wars, where a long, long time ago, in a galaxy not so far away, Microsoft got into some big trouble by doing shady business practices with Internet Explorer. Look it up, people. I'm not your Huckleberry.
I think a lot of our listeners in the U.S. really didn't kind of catch it because it happened in the U.K. and they got slapped with fines and blah blah blah. Same thing with Google. Same thing with
Google right now. Yeah, exactly. For a very similar thing, although it might look different on the surface. But the fact of the matter is, if you go to businesses like U-Haul or UPS, if you still go to these places, you'll notice the computer there is still probably running Windows XP, because what they're doing is they have software APIs that are written directly for Internet Explorer. We've talked about on the show how the government, God bless them, still uses old Internet Explorer APIs on Windows, and it costs millions of dollars to keep those old crappy machines running. Google, for example, they unveiled a new Google Earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
You cannot view it on anything other than Chrome. Apple for years would do their Apple shows when they were still interesting, unlike these facades they have now. You would need to watch the show on an Apple device, including Safari. They've opened that up in recent times with a partnership with Microsoft, so you can watch it on Edge. But the only browser that doesn't have that leverage is Firefox. Like, there's literally nothing that requires Firefox anymore. And the reason I use Firefox, even though people tell me it's crap, it's because it has so much integration with plugins. Now, Chrome has this too.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, it's not healthy to give everything to one browser, because the restrictions come in and then for example, Firefox has ad blockers.
Right.
Safari has ad blockers on iOS, and Google, of course, has fought this for years, and now they're talking about getting into, you can't see it, but ad blockers. I'm doing the scare quotes. Google makes all their money on ads.
That's kind of what kind of why I mentioned it with Safari in this in the most recent beta, is that Safari is coming out with iterations of ad blockers as well. Like every browser, and just like you said, they're gonna block only certain versions of ads. They're not gonna block all ads.
Yeah.
They're gonna block the ads that they don't want you to see.
That don't pay. It's not going to be holistic. It's going to be arbitrary. By the way, just a little update on Nathan's upgrade to Mac OS Sierra Beta. Apparently, and I knew this before, but apparently they're going to an entirely different file system. So
thank goodness.
That's going to be interesting. I know iOS is going to do that. So that's my my update as we're talking.
Okay.
But no, when it comes to ad blocking, it's not going to be genuine ad blocking like the way it is right now. Which, by the way, is not exactly like the way it is now either. It's totally different. If you go into AdBlocker Plus, you have to go into the software, because that's how they get paid. Mm-hmm. They get paid by allowing ads.
They have a whitelist. That's right.
So Yeah, this is how the internet supposedly makes money. They're not going to shut off the cow that gives milk. So,
Right.
uh,
I mean, really, it's a big thing. We could talk about ad blockers for a while, but
yeah,
we're going to gloss over
I'll
that.
just say this. In the browser where it comes down to this, try things out.
Yeah.
You're in college, you're young, you're hip, experiment a little. You may like it. You don't
You
ever like it
know,
until you try it. So,
maybe your friend hands you a BlackBerry and it still has,
yeah,
Opera on it, and you're like, well, I've never
yeah.
done this, and it's like your parents aren't around. Come on, try Opera.
You know,
You experiment.
once you go BlackBerry, you don't go back. So, well,
Wow. Okay, now we are.
actually, no, that's not true. No one goes BlackBerry anymore.
That's
So,
very true. So,
but the fact is, yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. I'll let the audience know how things go. But if you hear me screaming and throwing something out the window, it didn't go well. So,
right. Well, and so, but we do have other things to talk about. That's of course very, very important for Mac users. But we have a number of different things, and I think we'll start with the one that I think I'm going to get the most passionate about, and that is StarCraft. Now, just a little bit of background.
yeah.
Personally, I started playing StarCraft back in '96. I was like
You started, you
6
started
years
playing
old.
You started playing StarCraft 2 years before it came out.
Whoa, no, I'm
You
sorry,
meant 90,
Warcraft.
you meant you meant
Warcraft. I played
Warcraft.
Warcraft in '96.
Zug zug.
StarCraft, yes,
Zug.
exactly. StarCraft in '98. When you're right, Brood War came out shortly after, and that's when it came out with Battle.net. It was all the rage. Loved playing the custom games in there. And it it was a huge phenomena. It really started esports as we know it. I mean, it took off in South Korea. They were televising video game competitive matches 20 years before it would hit the United States.
I just want to say, to paraphrase Star Wars, many Koreans died to bring us esports.
Pretty
And
much.
I will say this though, for those of you, by the way, when I corrected Ben right there, that's what I do at my day job. That's why I don't have a lot of friends. But I will say,
No, it's certainly a fair point. And StarCraft, and I really wanted to kind of drive home the importance of this game because it really helped spawn not just the genre, not just the real-time strategy, and it didn't just set the standard. It started esports.
It also perfected a genre in a way that its predecessor Warcraft 2 did. And by the way, just so we're clear, Warcraft 1, fun game. If you had a DOS computer, 386, and you're done with Doom, fun game, a lot of clicking, command and conquer, sure. So Warcraft 2 was almost a religious experience. The improvements were so dramatic. It was so dramatic. And then StarCraft did even further. Now, I always have a special place in my heart for Warcraft. I really, really wish that Blizzard would go back to the real-time strategy Warcraft. I don't think it's going to happen. But StarCraft 2 came out, 2010? They turned it into 3 different games. It's not quite the same. It's still fun, still good. They're still supporting it. But damn, you got to admit, though, something, Ben. Blizzard knows how to keep their games updated.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's what we're talking about, though. We're talking about some shady practices that Blizzard did that I think merit a discussion.
Right. We're talking about StarCraft Remastered, and there was a lot of hype. They debuted it, I believe, last BlizzCon or at E3, I forgot which one, and they showed gameplay and all that good stuff. Like, StarCraft is 20 years old, and it's really kind of launched Blizzard to be as dominant as they are. So they decided to go back and remaster the game, but it's not just a new skin. It's not just lipstick on a pig. It is, a complete ground up recoding, as they said, with all the old bugs and everything, but everything looks better. But everything plays the same. It's supposedly.
It's going to be it's supposed to be coming out in August. It's supposed to be a 4K upgrade. Now, what they did, they allowed people to download the original game for free.
Mm-hmm.
And the implication was, and to be fair to Blizzard, I'm not sure if they explicitly said it was going to be free, but they didn't explicitly say it was not going to be. The assumption everybody and their brothers had was that it was going to be a free 4K upgrade, sort of a celebration. And of course, they announced today in this big long-winded PR. Now, Blizzard, we love you. You support Popzara. We're not going to hold it against you. A little shady though, a little shade. And the idea that the game 4K upgrade will cost $14.95. I think it's a mistake. I think offering even a 4K visual upgrade of a 20-year-old game. See, Microsoft does this too. Similarly, Microsoft bought a company in the 90s called Ensemble Studios, who, by the way, made the other great real-time strategy game, Age of Empires 2, which has its own long and noble history, or ignoble, because the way Microsoft treated that company was, again, shady.
Mm-hmm.
They are going to re-release Age of Empires 4K as well. And I think it's maybe a sad state of affairs when 20-year-old real-time strategy games are still better than the modern ones that come out. But such as things. So it's going to be interesting. What do you think? Are you going to buy it for $14.95 or are you going to pass?
You know, I played a lot of the old one. I have to wait and see about the custom, because like really what made it for me was Brood War. You could have custom games, and I remember people having to download every individual map that you wanted to play together. Of course, everyone had 56K modems, so you would get kicked if you didn't download it beforehand and you tried to come into a new room and download it there. You would get kicked. They didn't want to play with you. You're slow, whatever.
Just to reiterate,
yeah.
This game was so influential. I forgot to say this, that the whole subgenre Dota stands for Defense of the Ancients, which is based on a StarCraft mod. I mean, everything. Yeah, StarCraft is there.
Defense of the Ancients was based on Warcraft, but I think it got inspiration from a StarCraft mod as well. You know, before that. But
hey, if you're allowed to screw up, so am I. So there we go.
No problem, but no, what is really going to drive me to this, what is going to make me spend $15 on a game that is 20 years old, is the multiplayer community and their support for, people messing with the game like they could back in the day. They had, level editors. You could play, I remember playing things like Pokemon. I remember playing Tower Defense. I remember playing, stupid games, but they made the game all that much more fun because, hey, you could tweak it, you could mod it. I have to see the community.
You have a new computer. We talked about this last time. You and my fellow tech editor share a lot of the guts of their same computers with those i7s. Those are very powerful. Which, by the way, 4K output was restricted to certain processors, but not so with yours. You're free to go 4K.
The i9s, but yeah.
Yeah. So, but my question is, do you have a 4K monitor?
I do not.
Not yet.
4K TVs, coming out the wazoo, but 4K monitor, not yet. And I'm also looking towards a 160 megahertz or whatever refresh rate.
Those things.
144, I believe that's it. That one. But yeah, so far not yet. I bet you StarCraft's going to look pretty good on 4K though.
I think it has to. It's not just, and we've seen this before with console games where people will create updated versions. I mean, we talked a little bit about this about E3, where a lot of graphical 4K updates. But again, it comes down to the fact is at the end of the day, you're just playing a skinned version of something. It's not an improvement, and that's perfectly fine. But again, we'll see how it goes. I think Blizzard will probably send us the game. We'll probably review it, and it'll be based on its merits. And $15 for a 4K master of a really good game is not the end of the world.
Right.
So we'll see how it goes.
It's if nothing else, this is going to kind of serve as a reminder of where we've come from. And, let's face it, video gamers, there's a lot of them that are, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old that's never
zygotes.
Exactly, that never played this in any iteration. So if nothing else, this serves as a as a benchmark, fence post. This is the origins, and hey, we can play it again. So all right,
I do want to make a quick comment though. Sure, because I'm a lot older than I'm almost 80 years old.
Wow, nice.
I know. I eat my vegetables. But the fact of the matter is that, back in the 80s, people would have this discussion when Turner would colorize old black and white things. And I guess it's come around again. There are some purists who like things the way they are, like who like grainy, who like pixels, who like things stuck the way they were. And I will never argue that, right? Mm-hmm. But there's also those people that like remasters. Like, for example, Terminator 2 is coming back in theaters, all remastered. I'm considering seeing that. I love that movie. Whatever I see is not going to change. Then you have people like George Lucas who go back and actually tinker and change things. So I'm not sure where these remastered games will fall on that spectrum just yet. I know for a fact. I will give you one little example, and we'll move on. A couple years ago, there was an HD remaster, when HD remasters were the thing, of a game called Super Street Fighter 2, and it was created by I forget the name of the company. Capcom had enlisted this Japanese sounding, but certainly not Japanese company to redraw all the graphics. And if you're listening, you know who it is. Google it. But the artwork was terrible, and it wasn't finished on time, and they had to have extra people come in. Then they tweaked the gameplay. It was a disaster, and this game should have been forgotten. It was a botched revival of a great game that should have never been touched. However, we talk about the Nintendo Switch.
Right.
This game reappeared on the Nintendo Switch at $40. That was twice the price of what it cost 10 years ago, and it was new. With HD this, HD this.
Oh.
Horrible reviews, all sorts of things. So maybe some things are best. But notably, they allowed an option to turn off the new graphics. So maybe that's what's going to have to happen, is that you're going to have an option for old and new.
Right, and of course, Blizzard they are still a company, and if you go over to the Blizzard store, you can buy the original games. You can still play them. They are in the they work with the Blizzard app on your computer. Like if you want to go back to the original Brood War and StarCraft 1, you can still buy them from the store. For $10 or whatever it is, and you can go back. But the remastered is something new, and their attempt at kind of refurbishing it. But before we move on, actually, you just reminded me of something that I wanted your opinion on. And This is Nintendo. Now, Nintendo Switch, they had a lot of news. But they also had news with... No, I'm sorry, not Nintendo. I believe it was the... No, it is Nintendo. The Super Nintendo Entertainment System Classic, I think it was, coming back out, but not about the whole thing because, that's a whole nother can of worms. But one of the games that is coming out, it comes with like 80 games or something like that. No, it's $80. Comes with like 24 games or something like that. One of the games... Now, I don't know how big of a fan you were of the original Star Fox, but they're coming out with Star Fox 2 exclusively, as in it's never been released, and it's been like 25 years or something like that. What do you think about StarCraft 2? StarCraft 2, wow. Star Fox 2 coming out.
Okay, I won't say that I'm a Star Fox fan, but I will say that I rented the original game 14 times, and I could have bought it. I am the world's biggest StarCraft fan. StarCraft 64 and the Nintendo 64 is almost a perfect game. Star Fox 64, yeah, it's almost a perfect game. It's never been bettered since then. Nintendo's had it's one of the few franchises Nintendo has never successfully navigated outside of that generation. There's been attempts by Namco, by Sega, by all these companies to sort of rebuild it, repackage it, change the thing. They've even had Rare create a Zelda-style role-playing game with dinosaurs. It should have been awesome. The fact of the matter is, it's just never worked. And on the Wii U, about 2 years ago, they had a Star Fox game that was okay, but it was, even by Miyamoto standards, it wasn't great. Star Fox is a magnificent piece of technology. It's one of those things, the original game, made by a British company, by the way, that stood the test of time, because even though it was like Toy Story the movie, even though it was about polygons, it was about 3D graphics, you remember the game, you remember the character, you remember the music, you remember the gameplay. And then all of that was perfected in Star Fox 64, which is a game we will not play on this Super Nintendo system. But there was a sequel being made where you can ride vehicles, and it was never finished. And it sounds like they're going back and they're going to finish it. Now, I want to be clear here. No one's played it except for tech demos. I've seen it, by the way. I've actually seen the game myself.
Yeah.
That it was bettered in Star Fox 64. So it reminds me of when Nintendo brought out Super Mario Brothers 2 in Japan. And what happened was Nintendo of America deemed the game too similar to Super Mario, which it was. It was never released in America. So what happened is they took out another Miyamoto game called Doki Doki Panic, which was an Arabian Nights themed game. They reskinned it with Mario characters. That's why Toad was actually an Arabic character.
Yeah.
They reskinned it and they released it as Super Mario Brothers 2. So eventually, Nintendo brought out a game for the Super Nintendo. Speaking of Super Nintendo, see it all comes around. Called Super Mario. What was it called? Super Mario Collection or whatever. It was a packing game, and they included the game on that pack, and it was called Super Mario: The Lost Levels. So yeah, this is not new for Nintendo. They are known for re-releasing old classics, a little known. It's a way to pad the numbers. Getting the licenses for a lot of those Super Nintendo games is going to be expensive, and for all that for $80. Now, another thing, you call it Super Nintendo Classic. I call it my retirement fund.
I've heard quite a few people who want to go out and buy as many as they can and eBay them and make buku money.
Well, the thing is, two things here. To be clear, the original Nintendo Classic sold out big time. In fact, it sold better than most game consoles, and it was resold better than most game consoles. It was a huge hit for Nintendo. Enormous. Look, I don't care what anybody says. Nintendo had a fantastic 2016. Fantastic, better than any game company in recent memory. And that's going to continue. That seems like it's continuing this year. And so this is something we all want. But the other part is, you know, you have these people say, oh, you have an emulator, which is technically stealing, but it's on your PC. You got to get Xbox controller. This is a good approximation of the old stuff in your living room. You cannot put a Super Famicom, or excuse me, Super Nintendo on your television, on your HD display. It won't work without converters. The converter box alone would cost you more money to get an inferior experience. And I know for a fact that people hack these things so they can add more ROMs to it. I haven't actually played the Nintendo Classic. I have friends who did. But what I've seen of it, Nintendo did a masterful job of bringing these 8-bit games to the HD realm.
Right.
And I have no doubt that they're going to continue that with the Super Nintendo Classic. Super Nintendo, one of my favorite game systems of all time. Tons and tons and tons of amazing games that hold up the test of time. I have an editor, Nia, on Popzara, who I'm training. Nia, hi, how you out there? She's listening. She's listening.
Right.
She's too young to remember the Super Nintendo, so when we do training, we go back and we make her play old Super Nintendo games. And Nia, you are hilarious to watch because you're so terrible. But you know what? She's having fun playing because she's never played these things.
Right.
And it's fun to watch them. It's almost like I'm a father figure in the fact that this is stuff that you remember growing up, and it holds up. There's games that hold up. Super Mario World, Yoshi's Island, Star Fox, you know, tons and tons of stuff. ActRaiser,
Yeah.
Super Mario Kart, you know,
It's
amazing. Great system.
Right. It's going to carry over, and I'm sure in, you know, maybe next year or the year after, the big one, you know, again, at least for me, because
64?
yes, Nintendo 64, that was my first console. You can still buy them on Craigslist for like $20. You know, they're still out there.
But you know what though? There's not going to be a lot of games on it because God bless, we love the Nintendo 64, but it's not a console known for its breadth of games. It's known for a handful of awesome classics.
Yeah, it's mostly known for it's Star Fox 64, like you said. It's known for its Tony Hawk Pro Skater. It's known for, you know, Pokemon. A few.
The big problem though, is you have to consider is that Nintendo owned Rare back in the 90s, right? They own it. In fact, a lot of the goodness that you get from Rare, which was of course GoldenEye 64, Banjo-Kazooie, Donkey Kong 64, Jet Force Gemini, all these classic games. Nintendo doesn't own Rare anymore. Microsoft does. Now, Microsoft and Nintendo have been very, very chummy. It's been very, very curious. And I would say look for maybe more from that relationship. I don't know if you've heard about it, but Minecraft will be cross-platform between Nintendo and Microsoft platforms. Did you hear about this?
No.
Yeah, in fact, it'll be cross-platform for everything but Sony. You know, Minecraft has been hugely successful on Nintendo products, and Microsoft owns it, and Microsoft has put other products on Nintendo. It would not surprise me at all if there's something going on. That being said, maybe Microsoft will lend Nintendo the Rare games to put on their console. That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
But I don't. We'll see how it goes. But for now, excuse me, I got to go do some pre-orders to buy some Nintendo Classics.
It's one of those things that the consoles, if you can get your hands on them, Nintendo is notorious for that. They just unfortunately don't make a lot of consoles that start. You know, they slowly trickle it out, and it may be a few months even after the launch date before you can finally even see one in the wild.
I will say this. Sometimes I get this great idea that I'm going to invest in toys or whatever, and I'll go and I'll buy an action figure. Oh, this will go away. What I always end up doing, I always end up opening and playing with it. So it's like I had this Optimus Prime. Oh, this is going to be worth money someday. 3 days later, it was on my desk. You know, so I'll buy a Super Nintendo Classic, thinking I'm going to resell it. It'll be on my TV. It won't last. I can't help myself.
Right. So, that's why I buy 20 of them, and then hopefully, you know, you take your frustration out on one of them. But all right, let's see. We have time to just kind of tease and announce what we're going to do next here. You know, we have about all of 40 seconds. So, which one of these did you kind of want to jump into? Because obviously, if you go check out the show notes at computeramerica.com, we're not going to get to all of these. So, which one did you want to kind of poke into next?
Well, there's a lot of flamethrowers on this list today. I guess let's talk about Uber real quick because that's an easy one.
Sure. All right. So when we come back, and the music means, we'll come right back with Uber and how they've had a lot of bad publicity, but at the same time you have to realize multinational corporation, billions of dollars, and now 5 billion rides. So we'll come back and talk about Uber and just where they're going, what they've done, and hey, if they're going to keep going the way that they go. So everyone, we'll be right back, Computer America, just after this.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
Welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 31 minutes past the hour, and before we get back to the news, as if we didn't have enough things going on, well, guess what? We have a winner. And we have a winner to announce, and my goodness, the entries are still coming in. But that's okay, because you know what? The contest is still going on for at least another couple of weeks. So don't be afraid. Go get your contest entry in, and we will, of course, pick from that same pool here in the next couple of days. But this week's winner, and Nathan, if you want to help, actually, did I get one? No, the best thing I got is a rim shot. Yeah, and that doesn't help as a drum roll.
No,
so
you need a drum roll?
I need a drum roll.
Okay,
so,
let's do this.
This week's winner for Computer America and the Logitech giveaway is terrible. But this week's winner is
what do you expect?
Right. No. It was good. So this week's winner is Mr. Tim Cross. There we go. Tim Cross. He listens to us in Westminster, Massachusetts. And Tim, he actually won and this is a first. There are multiple ways of entering the contest. You can, follow us on Facebook, on Twitch, on YouTube, Twitter, things like that. But yeah, he actually won by referring a friend to the contest. So, just like that, nice. For referring his friend, he was able to win, and he will be receiving the M720 Logitech mouse. Very, very cool, and very, very simple.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
It's a good mouse. It's a good mouse.
Definitely. Lets you control 3 computers. Triathlon. Yep. So, Tim, we've already contacted you. We've already said hi, and the prize should be out on its way here in the next couple of days. So, if you want to be the next Tim, if you want to be the next Tim Cross, then computeramerica.com. But all of that out of the way now. The contest is something we do every week, and you should definitely go have fun with it. But getting back to, of course, Popzara, Nathan Evans, Popzara Magazine. We kind of had to, do the quick break. But now, on the other side of it, Uber, and it just completed its 5 billionth trip. And when you think about how many trips that really is, that means, of course, the population is moving like crazy, but 7.4 billion people on Earth. If each person had one trip, obviously, they're 2/3 of the way to a ride for every person using Uber. It's an incredible amount of trips. And, Nathan, you kind of chose this article, but it's an amazing amount of trips for the amount of bad publicity that they've been getting. Because you'd think if you just listen to headlines, Uber was, swirling the drain. You'd think that they were in shambles. Uber's still going strong. Yeah,
you can always, Nathan's rule of the internet is don't always believe what you read or hear. We talked about this before.
As someone who makes stories, runs a website, and writes things, don't believe everything you write and read.
Look. You really think there's a dinosaur working for Popzara? If you do, please send me a check with no self-addressed stamped envelope, and I will be sure to deposit in Spiffy's account. Trust me.
Okay.
But the fact is, it's more impressive when you consider when Uber started, which is only about 5 years ago. And here's the truth: I have no game in this game. I have no player. Uber, Lyft, all this stuff. I think crowdfunding, I think crowd ride sharing is fantastic. I just had this conversation the other day with someone. Ride sharing has helped see a lot of people through the recession. And the idea, like no one ever went outside and said, you know what, I really like the way taxis work. They never show up. The guy smells, robs me, have to overruns the meter. Don't know. I have to call a number. They say they might be there in 40 minutes. This is perfect. This system's flawless. No one ever said that. Somebody
Yeah.
said, you know what, you got a phone, you got an app, boom. Hey, you know what? We'll pay you to do it. It's the eBay. It's the eBay of ride sharing. Now, here's the thing. Is the guy, Travis, whatever his name is he a douchebag? Yeah, probably. Most Silicon Valley people are douchebags. Most of them are. There's very few ones that are nice. But here's the thing. He went out and did it. You could be all jealous. You could be all jelly, as the kids say. But the fact of the matter, he did it. Other things have sprung out, been wildly successful. Now, I've said this before. It's not a conspiracy. The vast majority of tech media, the ones that actually care about this stuff, are not run on advertising. They're run on venture capitalism. And venture capitalism usually has its hands and its money in lots of different pockets. A lot of those people invest in Lyft, an alternative. A lot of them invest in Uber. So when you have venture capitalism backed journalists who are almost indebted to talk negatively about the competition, which could be considered collusion and could be some sort of conspiracy, then you get tons and tons and tons and tons of stories about Uber, which would reflect in its stock, which would reflect in its performance on the markets. But at the end of the day, Uber doesn't make much money because it's a Silicon Valley company, and most of those companies don't make any money. It's a good product, but they've been fighting everything. They've had uphill battles. They've been fighting unions, taxi unions, local cities. And what's really funny, if you look at the cities where it's available, most of all, and this is not political, you get a lot of cities that would technically be considered progressive cities, not democratic enclaves, like parts of Texas or San Francisco. The ones that actually rely most on Uber are usually the ones that are the most hostile because everyone's got their own app. Now,
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been to Chicago. Chicago is the home of another internet online sensation, which is food ordering. Again, no one ever said calling the pizza place was the greatest experience. Places like Grubhub, Campus Court, they all pretty much started in Chicago. If you go to Chicago, there are hundreds of competitors, and they're all bad-mouthing each other. The truth is, the dream isn't to become the next Grubhub. The dream is to be bought by Grubhub. And with Uber, there's all this ancillary stuff going on. With there's allegations of theft, of intellectual theft, sexual allegations, all this stuff. Hey, this happens at most companies. Uber's a new company.
But that doesn't make it right, though.
I didn't say it makes it right, but I guarantee you it happens at Lyft. I guarantee you it happens at most of these companies. These are a bunch of entitled, rich kids who have never owned a business in their life, who get together, and you're giving them billions of dollars to play with. Of course there's going to be malfeasance because it needs to be structured.
I will
Facebook
say
was the same way.
Yeah,
was-
I will say that this is probably more indicative of the culture of not just Uber, but if it's that pervasive through a multi-billion-dollar company with tons of employees, this is more about the programming culture, Silicon Valley culture, and
Yes.
that, let's face it, white males in their mid-20s, early 30s,
true.
or early 40s. Hey,
Money to burn.
yeah, that's what it is.
But I will say this, though. White males with lots of money are usually the ones that fund these companies. And what happens is, you don't have to like it either. But the fact is, these are the people that usually have the capital or usually have the connections. And when you look at what happens, like I said, I've mentioned Facebook. Facebook was an atrocious company. They made movies about it. They had lawsuits about it. Interestingly, one of the people at Facebook, Sheryl Sandberg, has been tipped to run Uber. She's usually the one who swoops in and gives it some sort of respectability. Now, whether that's fair or not is not up for me to decide. But the real point is people seem to like Uber. You know why? Because Uber is the biggest. Uber typically works. They typically get you from point A to point B.
I don't think that Uber is liked the most. And, just to be fair, I think Uber is, just like you said, they're the biggest. And this is kind of like when ladies, I just started my dating apps again, but this is kind of like things with date.
Swipe left, ladies.
Yeah,
Swipe left.
swipe left, ladies. But no, ouch. But no, they, yeah, but it's just like dating apps and anything else that really depends on the community, especially things like Uber. That hey, you want available rides and you want them, without surcharging and things like that. You go where. You go who's the cheapest, and you go which one has the community. And with Uber being the biggest, well, they're going to continue being the biggest because they have the drivers, they have the audience, they have the community, and that's what you really look for in an app.
Exactly. But the other thing is they're the biggest now, right? Like MySpace was the biggest at one point. Yahoo is the biggest at one point. If they were really that bad, like people love to poo-poo Google. I love to poo-poo Google. I love to poo-poo Amazon. But at the end of the day, I order my stuff through Amazon, and I use my services through Google. They're bad, but they're the best. And the question is, do you have the moral fortitude to refuse Uber because they may surcharge somebody when a riot happens? At the end of the day, most people don't care. At the end of the day, McDonald's is mistreating animals. Most people don't care. Google is stealing your information. Most people don't care. And this is the part about Silicon Valley and about tech journalism and about this. It's an incestual relationship where most people think, oh my God, Uber, the CEO said this. Really? A CEO said something nasty? My goodness, that's never happened before. I think I'll just erase the app and use something that's inferior and pay more. Said no one ever.
I mean, this is not the last time, like you said. This is not the first time, and it's probably, in my mind, it's going to work out something like Chick-fil-A. I mean, they're in my mind. I think in a lot of people's minds, regardless of how you come down on the issue, Chick-fil-A is now associated with gay rights and things like that. Their chicken sandwiches, which are delicious and awesome, and I eat them all the time, because I don't bring, political issues into my food, into my diet. But, Chick-fil-A is forever associated with a political issue. I think Uber will be forever associated with, that culture until they fix it.
Well, the thing about it, though, is that the prevalence of social media has allowed everything to become a stigma, right? And it's called this is the way we do it in journalism too, or the way bad journalists do. If something okay, let's say we're talking about Computer America, and there was a controversy that Computer America, was only giving out 3 winners of Logitech mice instead of 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if somebody were to talk about Computer America, and you guys announce that you have 10 billion listeners, which is awesome, they'd have to mention the scandal. You understand? It would be like trolling for fish. You'd have to mention every little piece of news because every little piece of news merits a clickback, which is more traffic. That's
Right.
The way journalism is now. You leave a sticky trail of slime no matter what you do. Uber could be run by the Pope. The Pope could step down and run Uber and give free rides to everybody under the age of 40 who's poor, and they would win a Nobel Prize for magnificence, and people would still talk about the CEO's sexcapades. You're never going to run past it. We have people talking about Nazi interference with IBM. We have people talking about anti-Semitism with Ford. We have people talking about misogyny with Disney. I'm sorry. If that's how you gauge your life, by being that pathetic, grow up. Companies change. People change. People die. You hold everybody accountable for what happened in the past. You're not smart. You're not clever.
It's and
Stop it.
I think and by the way, tough words. I like it, but I think one of the reasons that there's that little bit of animosity towards Uber, and by the way, I've sensed it heard it from Uber drivers themselves, who actually told me, I've hired Uber drivers and they've, turned to me, in their car and said, you should really use the Lyft app. Uber's terrible in their corporate structure.
Yeah,
blah, blah, blah.
I've heard this too.
It's a real thing, but it's. I had a point.
But they're still driving Uber.
They are.
They're talking bad about their company, but they're not giving it up because it's good money. By the way, little full disclosure: I have staff on Popzara who have maintained their economic viability via Uber during the crisis. By the way, writers at websites have 2 jobs most of the time, most of them. So, but the fact is, does this person like Uber? Not particularly. But he also does Lyft. Does he like Lyft? Not particularly. But you know what happens though? Lyft comes out. Uber doesn't allow tips. Lyft allows tips. Lyft talks about how you could tip the driver. Guess what Uber announced last week?
They came out with a slew of, and really this was to kind of turn the narrative, like you said. But of course, every article that I read about the changes that Uber made, which, by the way, included things like shorter wait time. So like you can cancel a ride after 3 minutes instead of 5 minutes. You actually get paid for an X amount of distance driving to the person, which was a huge thing because Uber drivers, they didn't get paid for for driving to a person, and it kind of wasted time and wasted gas and cost them money. They guaranteed X amount of minimum wage to drivers. If they use the app and they log on and they're driving, they guaranteed them like $5.65 or something like that an hour.
It's a good change.
They did a lot of really good changes, but like you said, every article I read on it, the last two paragraphs were this coming after the fact of the of the scandals, of the yelling of the Uber CEO. All of them did have that, as you call it, the sticky trail of controversy.
You know what it is, though? It's also, I call it the Woodward and Bernstein effect. It's the idea that everybody wants to be the journalist that brings down a company. Like, if you go to most tech blogs, they'll talk about how bad Comcast is till the cows come home. Comcast is terrible. Comcast. Stories about Comcast. Guess who owns Comcast? Or NBC. Who's the rival? And that's the thing. There's no such thing as journalistic integrity anymore, where they have to reveal sources and say, our parent company is such. You see this once in a while, but generally speaking, it's cool to bully the company you don't like. All this bad news about Comcast, guess what? Comcast number one. That's the thing. If you talk to most people of Comcast, most people probably like it, because they're not trying to find the one thing that niggles them so much that they just can't stop bleeping about it. Look, I'm not trying to say Comcast is great. I'm not trying to say Uber is great. I'm not trying to say they stink. I'm just trying to say that I've taken Uber. I've given Uber rides to people. It's helped in my life, and it's helped my staff's life. And if they're really that terrible, he wouldn't be working there. The fact of the matter is, he does. Just like that Uber driver you talked to. Oh, go to Lyft. Well, you go to Lyft. Take your own advice.
Yeah.
He won't.
It's good money. It's the only way to really turn what you just said, because a lot of people do it as a second job. No, like, I've only met a few people that actually do it full time as they are strictly Lyft and Uber drivers. A lot of cab drivers have gone over as well. That's what happened in Vegas when I was bummed around that.
What's funny though? I'll just give you my last thought on Uber. Okay, my last thought.
Last one
is that I've always wondered why Uber didn't become more proactive with taxi cabs instead of fighting them, because you notice that every time you see a new technology emerge, like eBay, like there's all these attempts by brick and mortar stores to bring it down because it's competition. And eventually they join the chorus. They join up. I've always wondered why Uber never, and Uber, if you're listening, call me. Like, they didn't say, why don't we empower taxi drivers? Why don't we sell Uber service to taxis and allow taxis to do what we do?
Unions.
Yeah, exactly. And no offense, I'm not trying to be political about this, but unions are built on keeping, ironically, unions are the most conservative groups out there. They want to keep things the way they are. And the idea is that you could empower your drivers to make more money, be competitive with this emerging technology, and most importantly, have improved customer satisfaction. Again, no one ever said the taxi experience was sublime. No one ever said that.
And no one has ever said that every union is like every other union. It really is a case by case basis. This is just one that's where the taxi union and taxis in general are an older, decaying service compared to ride sharing, which it's all going to be moot as soon as we have self-driving cars and people own fleets of self-driving cars, and you don't even own a car anymore. You just hit a button and you get access to a car. That is,
it's the future. I'm not a Luddite. I'm not a Luddite, Ben.
Eventually it's coming, but I did want to say that because I did want to kind of move on. But real quick, and I know you're not going to be able to hear this, but everyone else. 1 second. Wait. There we go. All right, there's the drum roll. Pretty tinny. But the drum roll is, and a cymbal crash. Very cool. So, I just got news. I just got word about 20 minutes ago. So, actually during the show, I was checking my email, and Computer America was just approved to head on out to iHeartRadio. It's been pending for a while now. So, Computer America will be coming to iHeartRadio. Hopefully by next Monday, we will start broadcasting there.
Wait. You mean Computer America, that top-ranked radio show with the controversy of only giving out so many things?
Yes, that
Trail
one.
of slime.
The ever the ever popular Computer America. But yeah, so we've been trying to hunt that down, and we've actually been in limbo for like 2 months. And our service that we use, they actually sent us a rejection letter like 2 days ago, and they're like, you've been rejected from iHeartRadio, and we're like, why is that? And under the reasons they put, we're switching over to a new format, and you need to resubmit your show. I'm like, thanks for keeping us in the dark for 3 months, but that was great. So iHeartRadio, Computer America, we'll put a link up on our website. You can check out the podcast section. And, of course, with iHeartRadio, it's one of the most popular apps out there, and you should definitely, our goal was to kind of bring Computer America, instead of saying, hey, head on over to our website, download it from us, be it through us. We want Computer America to be wherever you are, wherever you're listening. So this is another step in that direction. So just wanted to announce that. Very, very happy. And Computer America on iHeartRadio coming soon.
That is good. I like that.
Definitely. So, all right. But like I said, we had a number of stories that, hey, everyone, if you want homework, well, Nathan has you covered. If you check out the show notes, we have a number of stories that we're not going to be able to talk about that you should know about. But, we have a couple here. And why don't we do some of the shorter ones, like this
Sure.
Texas boy, car deaths, deaths from heat are completely preventable. You think it's only 15 minutes in the bank. The line is a little bit longer. It takes 25 minutes. You come out, and the child that you had in the back seat passes out due to heat exhaustion. Happens every year. Totally preventable. Sad when it happens. You have a story here about an 11-year-old, which I can't imagine this is anything more than a hammer on a string attached to the roof of the car that smashes windows. But what did he make?
He made so this 11-year-old from Texas, right? His name was Bishop. What's his last name? He's from McKinney, Texas, right? Bishop Curry.
Right.
11-year-old kid, saw reports about kids dying in cars, developed a GPS system that helps ignite a 11 years old, by the way, drew a schematic. Didn't just play with something. Drew a schematic. This kid's smart. And
there
of
it
course,
is, yeah.
He's being fluffed up a little in the media, but here's the real story, though. First of all, bravo to this kid. Give this kid a scholarship. This is a kid you want to be watching.
Problem solver.
This is what you should be. I don't know why this isn't on the front page of stories. You look at the newspaper, and those things. You look at the news, and you see trashy, sleazy tabloids about everything from politics to cable television. It's disgusting. Here's a real inspirational story about a kid who took the initiative, was brilliant, did schematics, did science, and may save kids' lives. And bravo to him. So anyway, launched a GoFundMe thing. Thing made its budget. I think this kid is someone we're going to have to follow, but that's being proactive.
Right.
My question is this, though. You do see this scourge of idiot parents leaving their kids in hot cars. Now, I know we talked about you run in for a second, but here's the thing. If you already are forgetting that your dumbass is leaving your child in a car in hot weather, I don't know how you're going to remind yourself to put an app on. But if you need an app to remind you not to bake your child in a car, you probably shouldn't have a child.
Yeah, and that's something that we're definitely not going to talk about. But but I do think it's overhyped. To be fair, it's definitely a tragedy when a child passes out and dies due to heat exhaustion. It's in cars. Again, the reason it's so sad is because it is preventable. It is simple. It is 37 people every year, according to the article. Is 37 too much? Obviously, but at the same time, I think it gets a lot of media coverage, and I know how the media is. Kind of being the media, you kind of go where the interest is. But at the same time, I just had to look it up. Same thing with shark attacks. Whenever a shark attack happens in in Florida or whatnot, it got a lot of coverage. But they always bring out the same statistic to kind of bring it in, back to reality, and that's 150 people every year are killed by coconuts. And so for 78 shark attacks every year, that's really not that much in the grand scheme of things. 37 kids dying every year to heat exhaustion. Terrible tragedy, should not happen.
Well, but be clear though, it's not that much. That's not that much, but 37 preventable deaths by idiot parents leaving their child in a hot car.
Right.
This is the thing. This isn't something that's an accident. You don't accidentally leave your kids in a hot car. You do it neglectfully, or you do it on purpose. because you hear parents all, I just turned my back for a second. I just did this for a second. Look, nobody's perfect, and certainly the vast majority of parents out there do not leave their child in hot cars. I just want to say kudos to this kid for doing something that wasn't just interesting, but it was fascinating the way this kid figured out a problem, designed something. This is the
Right.
type of story I just thought needs to be encouraged. That you need to encourage your child when they show scientific aptitude.
Right.
And I think that's fantastic.
And again, nothing to take away from the kid. 11 years old. He has many years. I'm sure he's going to get. You can put this on any kind of school application, and he's going to be accepted right away. But I'm also interested into who his parents are, because whenever I find stories like this, and whenever I see stories like this, it's like that one girl who got a scholarship and all that good stuff because she invented a new way to detect a certain kind of disease, and that said, oh, by the way, her dad is part of is the head of the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, and blah blah blah. Like, they usually come from backgrounds that they already have an aptitude. They already have a parent who is kind of
nudging them along the way
in the field, right? So nothing to take away from the kid, but I'm kind of interested to see if his parents, kind of encouraged, his situation.
Well, that's exactly true, and I think it's obvious. It's also, we need to say that a lot of this could be propaganda, and I don't want to poo-poo on it, but you're right, exactly. A lot of times when you see these gifted children or high impact social stories, there's usually something behind it. It's usually not as random or as wonderful. So forgive me my self-imposed ignorance. I want to believe that children can somehow do schematics and do GPS coordinated attack. But the fact that, look at Palmer Luckey, the Facebook guy, the Oculus guy. The story was that he was just some 20-year-old. No, sorry, he's a cosplayer. Did you know that? But the story was, he's so gifted. He just did. No, the guy worked at a VR company already. The guy was pilfering parts. I mean, it's not as magical as it sounds.
Yeah, $600 million later in a lawsuit between Facebook, and you got yourself a VR, a VR initiative. But right.
But yeah.
And I'm gonna have to stop you right there. We have like 2 or 3 more minutes. We're going to do one more story, and we're going to do it quick. I promise. So,
sure.
Sense8 or even iPhone. Let's do Sense8. Sense8. Sure. When they announced this on on social media and the interwebs, mostly Reddit. Let's face it. People were incensed. Get it? Sense8. They were incensed because Sense8 was canceled. So, what is this 2-hour finale? Because I heard it was just kind of getting shut down.
Okay, first of all, a little background. Sense8 was created by the Wachorskis. I don't know if I call them brothers or sisters anymore. Apologies. I just don't know the lingo. But there was also the director of Run Lola Run. Mm-hmm. The Wachorskis since Matrix have had nothing but abysmal failures at the box office, not to be understated. Huge, colossal failures like Jupiter Rising, Cloud Atlas, Speed Racer. They've directed with the guy. They did direct Cloud Atlas together. So Netflix got them for a show, and it seemed like a good idea. The show leans heavily on sci-fi dystopia, on lesbian, gay, transgender issues, things like this. It's also one of the most expensive TV shows ever made, and I think when it came out, what the budget was, I mean, the show was more expensive than Game of Thrones.
Yeah. And
when you have a show that's more expensive than Game of Thrones, that's getting no viewers or a paltry amount of viewers, you have to do risk analysis. And Netflix has been pretty good about being progressive on all issues. They've also been very progressive on just putting new stuff online that you'd never seen before. So you can't say they didn't give this show a chance. The problem is, despite the fact that people on Twitter outraged, there weren't enough of them watching it. And so they canceled it, and outrage happened. And there's been cases where people do outrage and petitions and shows come back. I mean, how many shows have you seen that have been canceled that have come back entirely, like Futurama?
Futurama, right? Yeah.
Yeah, tons of stuff. Dallas, but the fact of the matter is the show just wasn't that popular. So to Netflix's credit, they've decided to give the fans a reprieve. I also think it's a chance to test it. Now, remember, Netflix made their bread and butter on basically picking up old discarded
Nathan,
shows.
I'm gonna have to stop you there. We tried to. Right.
Sense8 coming out, I don't know. If you like the show, it's come back.
Right.
So
yeah, we definitely tried to bite off more than we could chew on that last story. But in like 30 seconds, tell everyone where they can go to hear more of course, your thoughts, your staff's thoughts, and your writings.
Sure. Okay, real quick. Popzara.com if you like clean, wholesome entertainment with a bite and twist of lemon. If you want to hear more political
60
stuff, I'm also a
seconds.
host of a podcast called Safe Spaces Podcast. Please don't ban me again, Twitter. And by the way, little update. Mac OS Sierra High update installed. My computer has not crashed. Seems to be working.
Very
So
cool.
there's an update.
All right, so everyone, one last time, Popzara Magazine. We have a link in the show notes, popzara.com, for all of you who want to go directly there. But Nathan, thank you so much. Can't wait to have you on next month. We should do this again.
He says that now.
I know.
Have a good weekend, everybody. Thank you, Ben.
Everyone, have a great weekend. And hey, I hope you enjoyed today's show. We will be back Monday, and of course, hey, maybe even on iHeartRadio. Everyone, have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
10 seconds.